Following multiple officer-involved incidents across the state line, the Northern Illinois Training Advisory Board shares how more than 1,200 officers train for high-risk situations. Going through life-based simulations, officers run through unpredictable scenarios that prepare them for the job. Executive Director Jeff Schelling explains how de-escalation and use of force go hand in hand. He says officers have to be ready if an encounter turns physical.
In terms of dealing with situations and how does an officer determine what goes on, the officer most of the time does not determine where that goes. It's the individual's choice as to where they make that officer go.
There's a recognition that officers have to make essentially split-second decisions, and it's not just to second guess their every move, that you have to look at what they reasonably believed was going on during the incidents.